Hello, I'm Brian Sethurst in Los Angeles.
And I'm Alison Norrington in London, and welcome to the Story Hour.
The Story Hour sits at the intersection of storytelling and technology. We bring you the story behind the stories, how it's written, how it's produced, how it's distributed, and even the personal stories behind the storytellers themselves.
We talk with the master writers, producers, directors, authors, and technologists, covering it all from film and television to literature, virtual and augmented reality, and more, as well as the innovations in production, technology, and distribution that are changing the how of storytelling.
Be sure to subscribe, like the channel, and if you want to be notified for the next episode, just click that bell. We're doing part 2 of our interview with storyteller extraordinaire and super innovator, Bernie Sue. Welcome back, Bernie.
Hello. It's good to be back.
It's great to have you back.
As you can see in this episode, I changed. I didn't change. I'm wearing the exact same thing a week later.
Me too, right? I've had
the You know, these days you really don't have to worry about dirtying your clothes because you're really not doing anything. I was actually just thinking about this while I put on a nice pair of socks today. I rarely wear socks. I don't know, Bernie. I felt because it was you, I had to dress up. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not wearing out any socks. It'll be a while until there are holes in my socks again. So.
We all have pajamas on under the desk, right?
Well, I mean, I actually do wear socks because I just like having my feet warm.
And speaking of feet warm, Allison, I'd love for you to pick up on the themes. Bernie left us with a cliffhanger about
production. You left us with a cliffhanger, and now I have to segue that to keeping your feet warm. That's going to be really hard to do. You left us with the cliffhanger of the virtual production of Artificial, the challenges that's brought. And I know so many people in the industry have struggled right now to take this and run with it as it is. We've had so many restrictions with COVID. And I'd love to know how you've managed to remotely kick off this season.
I mean, it was one of the great creative challenges of my career. I'll just say that it was really hard. So just to give you guys a timeline, we've been talking to Twitch about this Artificial Season 3, the top of the year, and we had verbally kind of agreed that we were going to go through with this and started deal making. And then, of course, the pandemic hits. And so I originally, of course, was very worried that we would lose the show. And Twitch was just basically said like, hey, we're still doing content. Twitch is a platform is just fine. It just, you have to produce the show remotely. And can you do that? And then, not wanting to lose the show, and two, just really embracing what was an incredible challenge of how to produce a season of essentially television remotely. It's like, yeah, let's go. Let's figure this baby out. Let's try to figure out how to do this. And so it's incredibly hard. Our original season 3 was 20 weeks long. We did 12 episodes of 2-hour pieces of content, so movies, right? And we produced all of it remotely. None of the actors shared spaces together, except for 2 very unique scenes which they were separated by plexiglass. So they were safe. Everyone was safe, and it was. I mean, it's a really, really difficult feat, and the actors had to learn how to act remotely and had to set up their own setups with guidance, of course. And there's all sorts of ways you can talk about how the remote production challenge was working, but not only on top of the remote production part of it, the show is still presented live and it's still interactive. So there are a lot of remote productions still going, right? They're happening. But we still should do the show live, and we still do the show interactive. So that's what made it so difficult. That was just a really cool challenge, and I give a lot of credit to my team that we figured it out. And not only did we figure it out, the show doesn't look like a Zoom call. It looks like a TV show, in my opinion. It feels like a TV show.
In ours as well.
Yes, and it's glossy and slick and sci-fi, and the irony is that the show looks more sci-fi now than it did in the previous seasons when we were shot on sets. So
it's like a perfect fit for the time. It actually it seems to work for this time.
Yeah, totally. I think the show is far more dynamic in this format. I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to stay in this format or would want to stay in this format. I just think we took that challenge and we just took it up to dialed it up to 15. Like we
We
could have
have
done the Zoom version of the show, but we
we,
cranked it up. Go
we
ahead.
actually have a time lapse. Do you want to set this up before we view it of what we're going to be
Yeah,
seeing?
sure. So the time lapse you're about to see is my technical director and co-producer, Zach Wilson, and this is what he's going through when he's running the show live. So he's the guy doing the switching. And I want to point out that when you're looking at his screens, remember none of those actors are actually here, like at the present to him. They're
Yeah.
all remote, and they're
Wow.
all in their singular spaces, and they have to act not only feed their feed into the switchboard, they have to act amongst each other and do their scenes together. So take a look, and hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Here we go.
That is no mean feat.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that was one episode. That's like a 2-hour, 2.5-hour, kind of full run end to end. And it's 80 pages of script, maybe even more, 90 pages of script that he has to kind of flip through. Actors, they're not always on screen at the same time. Sometimes there's one of them, sometimes there's two of them, sometimes there's four of them.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
all live, right?
And it's all live. It's all live.
Insane.
So and we have to be reactive to the audience. We're building the audience into the experience, and it's. I mean, we literally just wrapped the season last week, and it's like exhausting. Like it's an exhausting.
I have a producer's question to answer because I know Allison's going to go into the storyteller questions. Say I'm you, or say I want to produce like you do and direct like you do, and so I'm looking at a new medium. If I'm coming from an old medium, I'm thinking about union regulations, I'm thinking about salaries of actors, I'm thinking about traditional budgeting that I would do for a television show within union parameters. We're going through this now with something else that has to do with musicians and unions. But how do you deal with that? Are there regulations that cover this? I'm sorry, just want to get to the practical aspect for those in the audience who are producers.
So artificial is SAG. So all the actors are paid through SAG, and I believe we fall in. We're doing a new media contract, and we're in one of the minimum blocks, so we're not paying them. I think in new media you actually can defer everything. We don't do that. Okay, so to be clear. So our budget falls within one of the thresholds that has minimums and like day rates and hours and stuff like that. So we fall under those regulations and we adhere to those regulations. And what we do is we work with that. I think it's 8-hour days and all that stuff. And I don't remember the exact verbiage, but I do know we pay all our actors, we pay them health and pension, like we do all the things you're supposed to do. So that part is there. We are not IATSE or anything like that. I don't know. I've never done an IATSE series or production. My productions are not that big. And the idea that in a remote production that you need to have a gaffer on set, and it's like, to what exactly they're gaffing? Like everything's remote, like things like that. I don't know the restrictions or rules about that, but I know that in innovation, you ideally I very much want the union system to work. Like I do think unions are a net good for everybody, the workers especially. But there are situations where unions get in the way of systems, and that's tricky. And so the situation where a union, I'm not saying any particular one, were to come in and lay down the law and basically prevent the show from happening, that's not helping anybody. That's preventing.
Well, and you're running ahead. You are really running ahead, and maybe this is in the context of my conversation yesterday, which was a 2-hour discussion with the American Federation of Musicians, and how rules are changing and what are they doing about COVID and distancing for musicians and all of that, to basically let them know that we know that what we're doing right now is slightly ahead of the curve. And I've noticed that even in the early days of interactive, that yes, basic pension and welfare payments and just to because they are learning about the environment as you are defining it. And
Totally.
so here you are, you're saying here it is, and no actor, hopefully no producer that's worth anything in this business is going to take advantage of actors. But here you are providing more work for actors and actually laying out a future that the union can decide how they would like to participate in that future. But I just want to
Totally.
handle the nuts and bolts because I know a lot of people are thinking right now, well, I'm going to be doing live streaming, or I'm going to be doing this, or I want to be doing this. And there are a lot of things that have to be considered, but there is that line where you're pushing the envelope and you're off road, as they say, the road less traveled. You mentioned it earlier, and so I just wanted to cover that. And now I turn it back to Allison so that we can get into the nuts and bolts of storytelling.
But that's really important as well. I mean, Brian, we had Will Brenton on the show a few weeks ago, and he's like directing some of the big UK soaps like EastEnders and Coronation Street and Emmerdale. And some of the challenges that he's had since we had him on the show with the plexiglass and all of that, where they're trying to make these productions work. And I've also written a couple of shows for a US brand. And we've had to shoot the whole thing remotely using like Instagram stars and stuff like that. And it's really challenging. And that's not live, right? It's set up to look like it's live, but it's actually not live. So for you telling me that you're doing all of that, plus you've got the live element, and plus you've got the audience in there too, like that's the stuff that could blow your brains. Seriously.
Blows my brains, and I
Right,
work on the show.
So I wanted to ask you, right, in terms of how the audience have adapted, right? Are they aware? I mean, are they aware of the fact that of the challenges that you guys have behind the scenes? Are they tuned into that? Are they behaving differently?
I think a lot of them are because I've been very transparent publicly about what we're doing. We're production, we're live, we're interactive. You, the audience, are consequential. Like all these things, I'm very transparent about. So I think our core audience that is rabid and loves us is all about that. Like
Yeah.
they know that this is a such unique experience, and it's to them good, right? So
Right.
so it's a good story, and they're really really enthralled and engrossed in it. So they I think they know, and I think the people who are aware of the show and kind of when you say, I mean, I think the concept of saying, hey, we do a 2-hour scripted sci-fi series on Twitch that is live, interactive, and remotely produced. They're just like, wait, what?
That is
What?
insane. Yeah.
like,
There's
like,
too many things in that one sentence, right?
yeah. Like, even if you just had that first part with a 2-hour
Exactly.
scripted live series weekly, that's hard enough. And you're doing
Yeah.
it live, interactive, and remotely produced.
Yeah.
On top of that, and so it's incredibly challenging. It's so hard, and I think I think our team has proven that it's possible, and we do it on a not a huge budget, and you can like dial this up each time. Like if you watch the season, episode 1 looks very different than episode 12. Like we really each episode kind of raise our bars, not because we're just trying to challenge what we can do. Like, okay, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do that? What's working? What's not working for us? And I think that really is a benefit in this kind of rolling production interactive model, because you by design have to be reactive to not just say audience to interact with them,
Mm-hmm.
but to production things. It's like,
Right.
oh, this didn't quite work in week 1, but we didn't. Good thing is that we haven't shot the second episode yet, so we can now pivot right now.
Right.
Versus something that's locked into locked in the can for years, say like a Game of Thrones season 8, which was widely panned, right?
Yeah.
And all HBO could do was like, well, you didn't like episode 3, well, here's episode 4, and it's and like the audience just has to take it, and they can't do anything, they can't change anything on the
Yeah.
fly, right?
No, because
So
it's stuck there, right?
yeah,
So
it's
you can
stuck.
be responsive. You're responsive in between episodes based on how the audience interact.
Yes, that is what we're promising to the audience, that there are episodes that like, I'll say this, like episode 8, for example, are very notorious. We did a trial episode,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
one of the main characters was on trial, and the audience was playing jury, and we're very
Right.
transparent about this, and the audience could vote him guilty or innocent. If he's guilty, he's off the show. Like, he goes to jail and he's gone. The actor, ends his run on the show, gone forever. And so we could not write episode 9 until that ending.
Right.
Or we guess we could, because we could have written the 2 branches, but
Yeah.
it was so inefficient to write 2 completely different stories that we just had to wait for the verdict.
That's crazy. So do the audience do things that you didn't expect? Like, how much can you preempt what they're going to do?
Well, so a common question when we do our, say, choices or poll branches and stuff like that is that what happens if the audience chooses something that you don't want them to do? It's like, well, that's possible because every choice is vetted by us, and we only allow them to pick things that we are okay with them doing.
Cool.
And we may have preferences of what we want to have happen, but if a poll choice hits the board, as I like to say, we accept all answers. That is the thing. So, them picking something that I don't want them to do, that's impossible because I've given them all the choices that I accept. Okay, but having them surprise me, that has certainly happened a few times. It hasn't been wildly crazy in the sense of like, oh, I totally thought they were going to pick this, but they pick that. Sure, there have been polls where I've like, hey, let's all kind of, who do you think is going to win this poll? Like the trial episode was a good one. Like, people thought he's going to be innocent or guilty, and there were people who on the show who were sure that he was going to be voted guilty, and there were people on the show who were sure that everybody innocent. And I was like, great, that's what I want. I don't want us all to think one thing.
All right.
I want us to feel that it could go either way, and that creates the drama of the choice, right? The consequence, the thrilling part of like, oh, where's this going to land? So
there could be a whole business around gambling on the side of this.
Oh, there totally could be.
That's funny.
We never did it.
What if he just thought about?
Well, it's also like the polls are manipulatable. Like the polls, not saying we have a system in place that we built into Twitch that we use the bits currency that's in Twitch that you can buy more votes. So you as a whale audience member could circumvent democracy and okay. throw a whole bunch of money.
Oh, gee, there's a novel idea. Using money to buy votes? Is that what you're saying?
We do it by theory. And to be fair, people go like, "Oh, why would you do that? Is that a money grab?" It's like it could be, but I don't think it is for us. It's more a demonstration of a model because one of the things that is in my shows of interactivity and transmedia that we talk about in our circles is the common question is like, how do you monetize this, right? Like, why make a interactive TV show which is much harder to make than a regular TV show when it doesn't generate more money than the regular TV show? That's a economics question.
That's right? The $1,000 million question always.
Yeah. So all 3 of my shows behind me all have a monetization system built into it that at least can answer the question. Is it the end-all solution? No. It's just a presentation of different ways to monetize interactivity, transmedia, multi-platform, to at least create other revenue streams for the IP, so that and I learned this slight tangent with Lizzie Bennett Diaries. Lizzie Bennett Diaries, well known for its Twitter experience. Okay, Lizzie Bennett tweets. You can tweet at Mr. Darcy, blah blah blah. They can respond to you. Awesome, fans loved it. I'm not knocking that we did it. I'm very proud that we did it. The economics flaw to that experience is that there is no generation of any revenue or statistic that proves that more eyeballs went to the show or more revenue went to the IP in that. Versus say like you watch a YouTube video, you get an ad, so your one view adds to 0.001 cent or whatever, like whatever that conversion is. Okay. So at least that has a scale, right?
Yeah.
Of 1 million views leads to $1,000 more, whatever it is. Okay.
Yep.
So there was no economics direct reason to have Darcy tweet or have Lizzie tweet. It was just a fan expansion of the franchise to make it bigger. And so when I designed Emma Approved, I tried to solve this system with our with our affiliate partnerships, with our clothing, with our fashion blog, so that now all the transmedia monetizes. So so that's with that, and then with Twitch in this case, with the poll extension that we can build in a monetization systems for the poll. So it's like I go now if I put a really, really compelling poll on the board, that will monetize for the IP. And it's more important to point that out because if you put a non-consequential poll on the board, it's not going to monetize. No one cares if you're going to drink coffee or tea, right? If the coffee, no one's going to care. No one's going to put money into that poll. They'll vote, sure, they'll vote, but they're not going to put money in that poll. They're going to care about guilty versus innocent for a character. They're going to care if a character is going to be written off the show and the audience has the power to save them. So in the trial episode example, perfect example, that poll hits the board. Guilty or innocent, the audience knows. Maybe they not know that the actor loses his job if he gets guilty, but they know that that character is guilty, a favorite character, or innocent. So you had the funny thing was that you had, people voted, and you had passionate fans of the audience throw all these bits into innocent. We're gonna save him, and then you had passionate members of the audience throw in the guilty. No, bastard's going down. We're going guilty, and you saw this fight, this rise in numbers, and okay, there's not that many people watching this episode, but there are a lot of people voting. There's a lot of votes going into the system.
Yeah.
And we have the reports, of course, that we could pull out that we saw there were multiple people on both sides fighting for the guilty innocent thing, and that poll monetized. And so that's the theory. That's what I'm demonstrating with that mechanism.
Right.
And so going forward, if I'm talking to kind of an old school executive and they go, hey, why are we building this poll system into this show? It costs money. It doesn't really give us any money. And it's like, wait, I actually can prove it can generate more money. Was it profitable? I don't know, but at least the mechanism is there.
Yes.
And I think that's the step that you're seeing that that in a lot of my work, that a lot of the if you're just analyzing the creative, you don't see this part. You don't see the thinking behind the monetization systems, because as you said, it's like the 1,000-foot $1 million question is how does transmedia monetize? And that was the thing that I was hearing back in 2010.
Right.
Transmedia is awesome. Cool, it's amazing, but how's it monetized? Okay, let me figure this out. Let me actually present a thesis of a solution, a hypothesis of how you could do it. And just so you know, Emma Approved monetizes by basically taking what is now currently the Instagram blogger model. Hey, I'm wearing this cool clothes. You want to check it out? Blah blah blah. We get a cut. It did that in 2015.
Right.
It did that 13 actually, way back then. So this is before all this was kind of common. Now.
Yes.
I feel like we are only in episode 2 of what would be a 13-episode series for us, because there is actually so much to discuss. But we're almost out of time, and so I know that you've just wrapped the season, and I know that you're probably decompressing, but I think Allison and I would like to know if there's something that you have in mind that's next, whether it is the continuation of Artificial or whether the wheels are turning for something else. So that would be our last question.
Sure. I'll answer in 2 parts. So Artificial itself is a Twitch original show. They have the option to pick it up. We don't know if a pickup is going to happen or not. Conventional wisdom would say it's probably going to happen, but you just don't know. I'm just that type of person.
You're on the bubble.
I'm on the bubble, and that's fine. I understand. I feel like I did my part. We had another Emmy finalist call this year, and we did in my opinion, our finest season. It's et cetera, and I think our finale was our finest episode. So it's we went out big, on a high note and stuff. So that part is good. The thing that's next for me, as just kind of a general sense, because I honestly don't know specifically, but the growing thesis of my work has been, in the current state, is the statement I always say is the audience needs to be consequential, and that is, I believe, the next frontier of interactive storytelling. Personal belief, you can refute me, that's fine. And so what I say by this is that Lizzie Bennet Diaries, transmedia IP of the era, blah blah blah, all the good things. Audience is not consequential. You can interact all day. You can talk to Lizzie. You can talk to Darcy, but you can't directly affect the narrative directly. Okay, and that narrative was going to go. Lizzie and Darcy hate each other, then they love each other, and then they get together. Right? That's That's going to be set. Okay. In artificial, it was the complete opposite of this. The audience is totally consequential. Like the audience is consequential week to week. And that's what I think is the next frontier. And that's what separates us from kind of baby interactive. I'm not saying baby interactive is bad. It's just that's what it is. It's fine. Games are games. That's fine. There are good games. There are not so good games. But what we can do, at least in this format, is provide true consequentiality. And what I mean by this is even in a choose your own adventure experience or a branch narrative experience, like a Bandersnatch or a Goosebumps choose your own adventure novel, you go, oh, I made a choice and I killed the main character. Okay. I'm consequential. Yes, but you can turn the pages back, you can rewind, go back 4 steps, and then watch the other branch. Okay, and get to the other end. You can do this in video games, right? Oh, I got shot and killed, and I can do that. There are some games like Mass Effect that do this differently, which I applaud. But by and large, most video games are that experience. The story, you have semi-consequence, but you don't have real consequence. In artificial, the audience is totally consequential. So audience vote him innocent. He's innocent. like that's it. There is a guilty branch, but that guilty branch is not canon. You will never see it. Maybe you'll see a script of it one day, but you will never see that branch. It doesn't exist. It's not part of the story canon. And that's what real life is. Our lives are consequential. We don't get to, there's the option of me waking up this morning and not doing this interview, right? Or not doing this conversation. But that didn't happen.
Or rewinding and not have a certain person lead your country.
Yeah, exactly. it happened. You have to play the cards you're dealt. And what that does for an audience is it creates that movement mentality. Like Mr. Jeff Gomez will probably talk about this a lot. And it's drawn from him, also a speaker at Story World. His collective journey, collective narrative kind of ethos, right? The idea that the audience is on this group together and they're all affecting it, whether positive or negative, through movements. And that's the theory that artificial, as in its audience's consequential kind of thesis presents, where the audience has the power to save characters, to hurt characters, to cause these things, and these choices have ripple effects down the road, where it's not just the next event.
But just to put the storyteller back in charge, they can vote.
Storyteller's in charge.
They can vote the character innocent, but you can kill him the next week.
I absolutely could. I could have done that, but we didn't.
Well, we're going to have to have you back as the science of consequential audience participation evolves with you as the lead scientist. I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today, Bernie, and last week. And boy, there's a lot here. There's a lot to talk about. And so I think Allison, we definitely have to have him back.
We definitely do, because I just want to say one thing. There's one thing to set up consequences and there's no going back, but it's another thing to be able to create characters and scenarios that people care enough about to want to take part in those polls. And I think so many times that's what's lacking in interactive. So if I had a hat, I'd tip it off to you right now for actually creating those characters and those scenarios that make people feel that way.
Thank you. And I think that those are your listeners. I'll just say kind of one thing about the power of consequentiality. And you go like, if you don't quite understand the power of that, we all have grown up on stories and shows or movies that we love. Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, whatever it is. Captain America, you get to rally behind them. You get to watch them do their thing and they're heroic and they succeed or whatever. But you don't get to help them. Imagine a franchise where you could help Harry Potter, you could help Luke Skywalker, you could help Captain America, and how much more you feel about that because you are cheering for them to succeed, but helping them, that's the next level.
There you go.
And we're going to end it right there. Thank you, Bernie. Allison, as always, a pleasure to work with you, my dear. And for the audience, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe, like us, comment. We're happy to hear from you. And if you want to know when the next episode is, hit that bell. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Story Hour. Bye, Allison.
Bye. Thanks.